Hi team, today we are going to do a hybrid application on my lovely client here, Lanny. We are doing a reamp of this. This time we are actually going to be doing 2 rows instead of 1 to do a more dimensional type of look, doing some shorter pieces around the front and the rest of her long pieces down below. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the first row in zone 2 and do that kind of quickly, show you the stitching, and then we'll go through and see how everything else looks. Okay, so I just moistened down this section with a little bit of water. It is okay to put your anchor rows in with a little bit of water, with it being a little bit damp. So now that I have my nice even parting with my duckbill clips holding up the hair, I'm gonna go ahead and start my anchor row. Okay, next I'm gonna go ahead and start mapping out my first row. Mapping is where we are going to place all of our wefts. We can have a minimum of 2, maximum of 6, but we only want 2 overlapping on the front anchor to have less tension. I now have my wefts mapped out, and I made sure to have a marking clip everywhere that there is going to be a new weft starting, which is where I know that I'm going to have to knuckle just to make sure that we are keeping it all nice and in place. I'm taking 2.5 arms length of string thread, and I'm gonna start stitching. Once I get to my second row, I will go a little bit more into detail with exactly what I'm doing, but I'm just going to now put this on my needle. Never put it in your mouth. We're just gonna loop it a little bit, put it through the eye of the needle. Pull that through, make sure we have our feeder, and then we can go ahead and get started on our stitching. Okay, we got our first row done, and now I'm gonna move down to zone 3 to do our second row of hand tides. So we wanna make sure we have at least a finger's width or height between each row, just to make sure that my client here can get in and wash her hair properly. We're gonna Gosh, words. We're gonna section off the same way we did before. And after we get this row done, then we'll go ahead and go in and fill in with the rest of our tape-ins. So again, just making this curding very nice and clean. I'll go back and kind of moisten it up with a little bit of water just to make sure that I'm getting it all nice and tight up into this little knot here. Lanny here has great density, so we are able to add these 2 rows and some tape-ins. So I'm really excited about this transformation here. We may be pulling back, starting the row back a little bit farther, which is okay because we are going to fill in those sparse spots in the front with the tape-ins up top. And the reason that we do this is because density, what team? Dictates. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm just gonna wet this down a little bit before I get it all pinned up. Ooh, that one keeps going. Right here, I'll probably fast forward too. I know I'm supposed to be teaching, but I think they mostly want to see the technical more than anything. Okay, have it up in a nice little knot up here. I'm just gonna go through and make sure I have all the little flyaways. That water that I put in her hair is helping me a ton right now. Just helping those hairs get up and out of the way. This is the time too to check your sectioning. If you see that there's something off, go ahead and fix that now instead of just pretending like it wasn't there and going back and having some issues while we're stitching. I'm gonna pull that little piece up, put it up in my knot, and retighten this one. These clips are gonna be your best friends. Ones you thought you would never use after hair school, they are back. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and map out where we are going to start our row. We do want to make sure we do our comb check. So we want to make sure we have the height of the comb between the row and the next row, or at least 1 finger between. And we also want to make sure that we have at least a comb's height from the hairline. So I know that we are good back here, and we are going to make sure that we get all of these shorter hairs towards the front. We are not going to worry about those for this second row. We're also going to pull back this way as well, so when she pulls her hair up, we know that she is not going to be seeing those extensions. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to pause real quick. I did not load my looper, so I'm going to do that real quick. While we are loading our looper, we want to make sure that we do not overload it. Can anybody tell me why? Great, thank you. That is because we may have not enough space to get our fingers through where we could break the looper. The good thing about our looper though is that we do have a quick release technology on it. So instead of it ripping the hair, breaking off the hair, it will break the looper first. Want to make sure we have all of our tools in our hands, and we are going to go ahead and start our anchor row. So the first section of the anchor row is our first anchor, and this is going to be in a pie shape. I want it to be about 2 fingers long and about a closed bead and a half size of height. Once we get that section, we're going to go ahead and put our first bead on, keeping close to the head. And I'm going to use this wonderful knot up here that I created on the top of her head to hold my tail comb. I'm going to go ahead and take my pliers, just relaxing, going flush with the head, pushing until I feel resistance, letting go, and pressing that closed. Next, we're going to go on to our travel anchor. So this one, we are going to pick up all of the hair, and now we're switching to just the height of the bead. We're going to make sure that it is only a finger's width across. Put that looper onto the hair, staying close to the scalp, and pulling it on. And as you can see, I am facing a little bit of a resistance. So that means that my next anchor is probably going to be a drop anchor, which will help us keep enough hair in the beads. So I'm just going to push forward, let release, and close the bead. So like I said, I'm now going to do a drop anchor, and I'm going to split the piece in half from the previous bead, and then pick up a section. It's okay to pick up more than you're going to need as long as you measure with that finger. You can slice it down with the back of your tail comb. Don't be using your finger. We're going to use that tail comb. It's going to keep it nice and precise for you. I'm going to do this one and one more drop anchor before I switch to the other side, because I want to leave room for my switch anchor later. So I'm going to grab half of this, skim underneath the height of the bead, measure out my 1 finger, take out with the tail end of the tail comb, loop my bead on, staying close to the scalp, putting this back on my pinky. We're going to hold the bead, move forward, let go of that tail, and press down. Perfect. All right, we're going to switch to the other side. We're going to do the same thing over on this side where we check where we are going to start. So we know for a fact that our weft above starts right here. So we want to make sure there's at least a finger's height between. So I'm just going to take this a little bit right here and pull that up just so I know that I am not going up any higher. I'm going to go back behind this ear here to get this hair out of the way. We are going to do our comb check up, and we're also going to check it sideways as well, and that looks great. So we are going to go ahead and start our first anchor on this side. This one is also going to be that pie-shaped anchor. Let's scoop this back. So it's also going to be that pie-shaped anchor. You can start from the top of that corner if you'd like, and head this way to the left, as long as you make sure you go back and clean that up. So we know we just want it to be those 2 fingers, and then we also want to make sure we only have the closed bead and a half's height. So I'm going to go ahead and get that cleaned up. It's still a little bit too tall. All right, and that is looking pretty good. Okay, now we are ready to start with this side of the beads, or the anchor row. So we're gonna take the bead, keep it close to the scalp. Already feeling a tiny bit of resistance, so I know that my guest here has a little bit more density on this side, because again, density dictates. So the next bead, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it is a drop anchor right away. For this side though, we want to make sure that we are holding our pliers upwards like this. We don't want to do anything kind of weird with our arms. We just want to stay nice and comfortable. We're gonna, again, just grab from the top, keeping flush with the head, pushing forward until we feel resistance. If I can get a hold of it, press, and then let go of the tail and close the bead. So like I said, little tip here, we are going to, like I said, we're gonna do a drop anchor. So a little tip here, since we are going from the opposite direction, what you can do is pick up your piece and then slice that little tail in half, just like that little waterfall braid. That is what it's going to look like. We are still keeping the height of the bead, making sure that it is 1 finger's width. And then we are going to just continue this row back over so we can hit that switch anchor. Again, I'm still feeling a little bit of resistance even though I had the drop anchor, but that is okay. We are making sure that we are not just tugging at it completely. We are just nicely kind of moving it through onto the bead. Pushing forward, dropping that tail, closing the bead. Again, this is called a shutter right here, when you can open it up and see where your section ends. So again, I'm just going to skim that, the height of the bead, take about quarter to a half of the previous little tail. Measure out my finger's width, keeping it closer to the head. Back on the pinky, pushing it forward till we feel resistance, dropping that tail, pressing down. Now, if you're someone that is heavy-handed like I am and you are having some trouble pressing too hard, here is something you can do. We are going to skim again as per usual. We're going to take about half. We're doing mostly drop anchors on this side of my guest's head. Doing the 1 finger again as well. Everything right here is the same. And this is just going to be for practice. You're not going to be doing this all the time, especially with your clients looking at you in the mirror. They're going to think you're crazy. But what we're going to do is we're going to hold on to the bead, close your eyes, and press forward. When you feel that resistance, you can go ahead and open, let go, and clamp, and you should get the perfect amount of tension there. Remember, this is a low tension method, so we don't want anything to be hurting our guests. Make sure that you ask your client as well to let you know if anything is hurting them, anything is uncomfortable, because it'd be much easier to fix it now than have to go back and completely redo a row, right? Absolutely. Okay, we are getting closer to that stitch or switch anchor. Still having a little bit of resistance. This was a travel anchor, so I know I'm going to just switch back over to my drop anchor. It seemed like I had some good density there for that, but that is okay. We didn't just shove it on there and force it. Pushing forward, releasing, closing the bead. Beautiful. Now for the switch anchor, we want to make sure we have no more than a 2 fingers width between the 2 beads. You may have less, but you definitely don't want more, or else it'll be a lot harder to get that switch anchor in there. Press to resistance, drop, clamp. I'm going to check right here. We're going to open those shutters. As you can see, I still have about 4 fingers width, so we're going to do probably about 2 more. Going to do a little drop anchor here. And close to the head. That one went through very nicely. How are we feeling about that? Probably 1 more.
I mean, what you're saying and what you're
keeping close to the head, scalp, back on that pinky. Holding, pressing forward, dropping that tension, pressing. Okay, so now we have about exactly 2 fingers width, maybe just a little bit less for the switch anchor. So I'm gonna make sure that I have an extra clip here to help me with my switch anchor. And I'm gonna set my pliers down for this part. So what I'm going to do is open up. It does not matter which side you start on, just whatever feels most comfortable. I like to start on my left side and then pull in my right side. So what I'm gonna do is take about half of this section, still keeping it the height of the bead, and then taking about half to a quarter of the tail on the left side, just like we were doing a drop anchor. We're gonna go ahead and put our looper tool around it, pull our bead through. We're gonna flip this up, and that's where that clip is gonna come in handy. I'm then gonna pull the bead forward and push my looper up through the bead. And I'm going to go ahead and just readjust that clip and keep the looper right there as well. Now I'm gonna head over to this side and open up this shutter on the right. We're gonna take about a quarter to a half of this section, and then the rest of what is left in that middle section in between. We're gonna take that piece, unclip, and we are going to put it through the looper tool. Then you are just going to pull straight down. Again, if you're having any resistance, just lightly kind of pull and shake, shimmy, all that good stuff. Don't just yank it. And we messed up on that, and that's okay. I pulled it right out. Okay, so we're just gonna redo that again. Take about half this section, quarter of that, switch anchor. Oops, I need my looper. Putting the bead on. Pulling that upward, pushing the bead towards me. Looper through there. Clipping that out of the way. Let me go more down in there. Perfect. Again, opening this shutter, taking about a quarter. Taking the rest of that section. Opening this up. This time we're gonna get it. Opening that looper up, pulling through, pulling this down. This time I'm having a little bit more resistance. Just kind of working your way with it until we get this little bow or mustache. Now you want to make sure that this section is nice and clean. So pull through, kind of take your tail comb and brush through any spots that you think you need to before you go ahead and clamp.
Look, I just went out with your friend Bella. He might be just exactly what I need. No drama. Calls,
Pull this
he
little bit
says.
back through. Sorry. Is that feeling okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
But I have to stop thinking that everybody should. I have to stop
All
thinking that.
right. Much better. Just gonna comb it down because you want this to be nice and clean. I'm gonna hold these 2 pieces off to the side just to create a little bit of tension. Go ahead and go under and clamp once. And we'll go back on top and clamp again. Perfect. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and map our wefts and then get the sewn in. So again, we just have 2 more wefts here, just like we had in the other one. Like I said, you can have a minimum of 2, maximum of 6. My guest here wanted 2 rows. She likes the feeling of having more hand ties than tape-ins. So we're just doing 2 smaller rows on her head to give her some more volume. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and start mapping this out. I'm going to fold it this way to make sure that we are not trimming those tethers. We're going to put this past the first bead, but not all the way to the edge. You want to make sure that you have a little bit of room in case there is a little bit of slippage or it starts to move as you're sewing. You do also want to make sure that your marking clips are always marking where there is the end of a weft, because that is where we're going to want to make sure we are either knuckling or we are just really securing that space in. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side where I'm just going to do a little half fold right here, just so we have a little bit of stability and we can do our bumper right here in that little hole. And don't be afraid to use all your marking clips. Rather have too many than not enough in there to help it from slipping. Plus, those marking clips are really going to help you see where everything is. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my string. Let's just do 3 arms lengths basically of string. Last time I had a little bit extra, so I'm going to do just a tiny bit less. Cut that off. Go ahead and circle this thread right here and put it through the eye of the needle to make sure we have our feeder. And now that we have that ready, we're going to go ahead and start sewing. Stitching. So I'm just going to kind of peek behind here and make sure I'm back behind that first bead, almost to the second bead, back behind. And I'm going to first go in like I'm doing a top stitch and just securing that with a double just knot. So just one knot there. And a second knot to secure it. There we go. Now we are going to go ahead and do a double anchor stitch. So we're going to go take the C needle right up against the head, not poking our client, pulling it through the circle. We're going to have our peace sign right here, and we're going to do 2 full rotations. 1, 2, through that hole right there, keeping our arms close to the head still. Pull that down, and we're going to pop it and lock it. We already have a little left right there, so I'm just going to take that one out. It was getting in my way. And we're going to make sure we're not going to put it up here onto the head. We're going to put it down on the table or tray next to us. So we're going to do a second double anchor stitch. We're only going to do 2 on each side to start and to finish. So I'm up here, 2 full rotations, 1, 2, back in through the hole, pull up, pop and lock. I'm now going to take this front marker and I am going to kind of place it, right underneath here just to make sure that I'm not going any lower than I need to. I'm going to hop over this bead and I'm going to do a single anchor stitch. We're going to start our knuckle. Our knuckle is 3 back-to-back single anchor stitches. That's 1. Pulling through, 1 full rotation, that is 2, and here is the 3rd one. Now depending on your real estate, you might be able to do 4, you might only be able to get 2. As long as you're making sure that you're getting those in there, it should be nice and secure. I'm going to take this marking clip out so I can work on my bumper now. So for the bumper, what we're going to do is go in between both of these 2 wefts here. We're just going to go in between and push through the front and just do a normal top stitch, which requires no twisting of our fingers. Now that I have that done, we are going to back stitch. Back stitching is just going to be top stitches in between the single anchor stitches that we've already done and double anchor stitches we've already done. We're gonna back stitch all the way through what we've done prior to this before we start switching back to something else. So a top stitch, we're just gonna go right through that hole right there and pull straight up nice and tight. And like I said, we're gonna continue this backwards until we get past the point where we started. Making sure that we are not stitching back behind any of our beads. We are making sure to hop over every bead. And we also want to make sure that the string is headed towards the way that we are stitching. So now that I'm going to the left, I'm making sure that my thread is staying on the left side of me. Okay, now we are finally back to the beginning and we are going to start alternating our top stitch and our single anchor stitches. When we do get to a marking clip, which is where I've indicated that there is a new weft, I will start doing a few knuckles, so that will be a couple of the single anchor stitches in a row.
Did you stop it?
Well, it's fine, but I'm gonna edit it.
Anthony locked himself out of the house.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Did you lock the front door?
Of course I did.
Did you lock the front door?
Well, no, I just left it unlocked for the day.
Oh no, it's always locked. What? I can get there after I do my haircut. You know what I mean?
Right.
And back, but I'm like, you're gonna have to wait. I gave him a garage door opener and a key.
And he doesn't have either?
Either. That's not my problem. It's not my fault.
No. Not at all.
Unfortunately, no one's gonna pay you to be a husband unless you marry Oprah. So I had to find a job. Now, I always
I'm now getting to my first weft, so I'm doing 3 back-to-back single anchor stitches. I'm actually gonna do 4 just for extra insurance because I felt like I had a little bit extra of that weft popping out. After that, I'm gonna start back up and doing my top stitch and single anchor stitch all the way until I hit my next weft right here where that marking clip is.
And it would have been the perfect job if not for one evil, crazy bitch. DES.
I didn't figure no shrimp in the jock department, huh, Big Dale?
Okay, Julia, come on.
Hello?
We'll talk about that.
Hello?
Hello.
You'll have to wait till about 5.
Bye.
Well, I mean, this'll learn you. I give you a key. Yeah, I'm with a client.
Just stop by, push back.
I live 20 minutes from work. I'm with a client. No, I can't. I'll be there at 5. You know better. Those things were never.
Okay, how long is the hair day? How long?
Well, I told you I could be there at 5, so that's how long. This is your deal. You need to be prepared.
My fault.
Where are the keys in the garage door opener, Anthony?
They're in the garage door opener is in my room, and I thought I put
Okay, listen to what you just said. You thought you did, but you didn't. This is not my fault. But I will. Okay. Well, I'll be there around 5 to let you in. You're gonna have to just sit there and play with your phone. If you break anything, you will be grounded. I will take your game and everything else.
Jeff Keller, my boss, the sweetest man I know. He loves me, and I love him. Everybody loves him.
They love to blame other people. Okay, I'm coming up on my first, or not my first, but another weft. So I'm going to start doing my knuckle, which is the 3 back-to-back single anchor stitches. Just a reminder, we're keeping it at that peace sign. We're doing 1 full rotation. Even if you go around and you feel like your fingers are sideways, any other way, it is not considered a full rotation. So just make sure, keep those nails pretty, do something cool so you know if you need to practice, keeping something so you know you always see that side of your fingers. I had another educator of mine teach me that with hair cutting. And it was the best tool ever, was putting a little X on the back of my hand when I was haircutting. I'm gonna hop over that bead and do another one. And then switch back and forth from the top stitch to the single anchor again until I hit this next marking clip. Now you could do top stitches all the way through since it is the easiest stitch. However, you may not get as secure. There might be some slippage throughout. So we want to make sure that we are really keeping it nice and tight to the client's head. You could also do a single anchor stitch the whole way through if you'd like as well. But for removal, just remember that that is going to be a little bit more difficult. And you're going to need to have a lot more attention to detail when it comes to cutting the thread when you are removing. Okay, again, coming up on another weft. So a knuckle, and then we are at the end of the row here. So we will just go straight into that. Now if this happens where the needle comes out, all we're going to do is just make another little loop, put that through the eye of the needle, and we got our figure back. If you ever need a little break as well to grab something, you can always use this beautiful little bun up here as a little pin cushion, I like to call it, to put your needle in as well. We don't want it dangling, we don't want it to poke the client in the head, anything like that. Also, team, please be sure to stay in front of the section that you're working on. That is how we're going to get uneven stitching, and that can cause a lot of issues like slippage, some tension, all of those things that we don't want in our beautiful hand-tied rows. Okay, this is the last single anchor stitch of the knuckle, but we are going to continue those heading forward towards the front of the weft. Again, like I did on the other side, I'm going to take my marking clip and just kind of go underneath. This is the last one before we hit the front of that first bead. Popping over that bead. Now I'm getting to the front, so I'm going to go ahead and do one more single anchor stitch, and then I'm going to start that bumper. Okay, the bumper, we're going to go between those two wefts. It is one weft folded, but we're going to go between those two and just do a nice top stitch. And then I'm going to start back stitching in between the single anchor stitches that we were doing. We're gonna back stitch back until about that second bead. And then we will finish off with our 2 double anchors. So I'm gonna do the first one here. Oops, and again. Always make sure you have enough string in your feeder. Okay, same thing, 2 fingers, 2 full rotations, put that through. There's a bead there, so I'm gonna pop over. Same thing through the hole, fingers up, 2 full rotations. Ah.
Speaking of entrapment, we can see that girl about her vagina. Excuse me.
Okay, perfect. Now when we cut the string, the thread, we want to make sure that it is no longer than 1.5 inches and no shorter than 1.5 inches. So after that, what we can do is we can take our looper here and we are going to go, oops, sorry, up underneath the row and push that through the anchor row, up underneath. We can take the excess string here, pull it through the looper, go back through and just kind of pull it down, and it will hide it back underneath the hair here. And then we have one more over on this side, so we're gonna do the same thing.
Lady,
Just a second, sweetie, I'll be right there.
no, that's fine. We're here.
Okay,
I'm gonna use the restroom.
okay. They're early, you're fine.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this off so I can show you up close the row.
I think you did great.
Okay, finally, with our hybrid application, we are gonna go ahead and start adding our tape-in extensions. So we have already put her first row in zone 2, which is where our first stairway would go. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop up into the second stairway. So what I'm going to do is make sure I have the height of the comb, and I'm going to make a horizontal line across. I know for a fact we're gonna do them on both sides. So I'm going to go a little bit farther back so I can make sure that they are gonna be even on both sides, because we do want them to be symmetrical. Same as always, we're going to do our cone check. So we do want at least a finger's width between the weft and the hand tight extension. However, that is not going to give us enough coverage in the front here. So I'm going to move it back a little bit because we do have that cone's length in between. So just going to do our cone check again. Perfect, to get that out of the way. And then we'll be able to move up into our free zone to fill this spot in. Okay. So what we're going to do is go ahead and take our tape in, our nano panel, one weft, take off the tape, the backing of the tape. We're going to take the tape and make sure we're not touching the sticky part. You're going to go up to the parting and pull down the height of the panel or a 1/4 inch and just press a little bit. These were already heat activated, so we're just pressure activating them now. We're going to go ahead and lift up and let the tape do the work for us. So we're going to ride that wave. That looks beautiful. We're going to go ahead and make sure that we clip this out of the way. I lost my clamp. Always keep them on your wrist here. Pro tip. So we're gonna lift that up so we can see that nice and beautiful nano panel. We're gonna take the backing off the second one, and this time instead of just going straight on, we are going to flip it upside down. We are going to connect the left side to the left side and then just walk that over Press just slightly, let go of that clip, bring it down and make sure we have no extra hairs poking out or anything like that. And once that we are sure that we like the way that looks, we're gonna hold on to the left side and press forward using the client's scalp to create that pressure. So there is our first one right there. Beautiful. So now we are going to make sure that we are keeping the client's part in mind, but we're gonna go up another height of the comb. And this is where we're gonna be in our free zone. So this is where we can start adding that 10-degree angle if needed. So I'm gonna get that up out of the way. It looks like we probably will need a 10-degree angle because we really wanna fill in this front section of Lanny's hair right here. So what we're going to do is we're gonna find where that last tape was and make sure we are still doing a comb check with the vellus hair. So it looks like we're going to be able to do it right about here, but I am gonna shave a little bit off to create that 10-degree angle. The 10-degree angle is just going to kind of push that hair forward a little bit. So again, take that backing off to expose the tape, making sure not to touch the sticky part of the tape. We're gonna go right up to the parting and pull down 1/4 of an inch or the height of the panel. Press down slightly. Again, let the tape do the work for you. Pulling up, writing that wave or a C. We're gonna lift this all the way up so we have that panel exposed. You're going to grab the second part of the panel, so the second weft, flipping this upside down, matching left side to left side, working our way, walking our way over, pressing ever so slightly, dropping that down, checking for any extra hairs, and then again holding on that left side and pressing forward using the client's scalp. Now you can go ahead and decide if you want to add any more up top, any less, but again, just density dictates. And I think that we are looking like we like the way this looks. It's definitely filling in that front piece, and so it looks great. So we're gonna go ahead and head on over to the other side. And I accidentally did drop that section, but no big deal. All we have to do is find where we put our last tape in on this side and just wrap it around to the other side. And we're still gonna make sure that's about a comb's height above the last weft. So just like before, we are gonna make sure that we do our comb check from the forward going, or from the front going backwards. So we do know that we want this to be back behind the ear a little bit still, just because of the vellus hair. Now I know with a regular stairway, this is gonna be a little bit different, but since we are doing a hybrid, this is how we need to place them. So we're gonna go ahead again. Very repetitive, very easy. You can get very quick at this. Taking our panel, starting at the part, pulling down 1/4 of an inch or the height of the panel, pressing ever so lightly, lifting up. Again, as you can see, you can't see actually, hold on. As you can see, the hair kind of pulls up with it. We're just going to grab that hair. Then take the time to go ahead and take any extra hairs out that you don't feel that are necessary. Don't try to clean as you're pulling it up. Wait until it is pulled up. Pin that out of the way. Take our next panel or weft. And we're going to go up underneath, again, just touching the left side. Now, if you are left-handed, this is gonna be opposite for you. You're gonna start on the right-hand side. Walking that over, pressing. We're gonna unclip that, check for any extra hairs, holding on the left side and just making that nice and tight. We're gonna do the same thing as we did on the other side, where we're gonna go about a comb's length height, I'm sorry, up above. And we want to make sure it's above the parting, not the actual extension itself. So we're gonna pull that down. Oops. Throwing things at you, Lane. Thanks for being a good catcher. Pin this out of the way. Again, density is going to dictate, so we are going to make sure that we are doing that cone check every single time. This one is still going to be at that 10-degree angle, so like I said, I'm going to shave a little bit off because we do want that to push forward to fill in that front section for us. So I'm going to make sure we're at least a finger's height between, and it combs width away from the head, or the face. So we're going to be about right here. And take off the backing. Same thing as before. Going to the parting, dropping down 1/4 of an inch or the height of the panel. Pressing down to adhere to the hair. If you do press too hard, you may grab onto someone's scalp. That's not going to be fun. So just don't push too hard. Again, density is going to dictate with everything when it comes to Amplify. So we're gonna pull that up, pin it out of the way. We're gonna take this last little panel here, go underneath, touching left side, walking it over to the right, pressing a little bit, pulling down, checking for any discrepancies, holding left side and pressing over to the right. And see how that is such a slight 10-degree angle, but it still pulls forward like so. So we are going to check this out here and see how we like the way this is feeling. How do we like the coverage in the front, Lanny?
Really good.
Good, awesome. So it looks like we need to just maybe touch up a little bit of her perimeter, and then we'll be able to style and be ready to go.